Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the State of Nuxt November edition. My name is Sébastien Chopin, I'm the co-author of Nuxt.js, and you can find me on social network with the username @Nuxt. I'm French, I have a baby boy, and I like playing basketball and dancing. Let's talk about Nuxt 2 and the latest version, which is Nuxt 2.14. I don't know if you know, but we implemented the full static export. How we implemented is quite simple. We actually mock async data and fetch in production. So we will actually keep the payload when doing server render, when server rendering the page, and we'll call them instead of calling your async data method. We also implemented a crawler to generate all your dynamic page, so you don't have to specify them in generate.routes. But instead we will crawl all the link or the next link you have to guess all your pages. We also support offline by using the PWA module. And the only thing you have to do is setting the target to static and running Nuxt generate. But on top of that, we implemented a smart generate. And the smart generate will simply skip the Webpack build when no code has been changed. This means faster redeployment of your static website. It is platform agnostic, so it already works on Vercel, Netlify, and any other CI. And it works with Nuxt content directly. And any CMS you use, since it's mocking async data, so you can do any API call in your async data. Let's see a quick benchmark regarding with and without the smart generate. And as you can see, we have an optimization of 3 times for redeployment. This means paying 3 times less of the build time. And let's see a quick demo. For this demo, I'm using Strapi as CMS. I have a homepage. I have an article directory with an index page listing the article and the slug page, which is my dynamic route. And my Nuxt config is quite simple. I have my target static, I have the Strapi module, I have my preview plugin that we will see later on, and I have my Strapi configuration. So let's start our development server. Pretending to type, this is actually already recorded. We can see our fancy loading screen until Webpack is done. And here we go, we have our home page. Going to the article page, our nice article. If I refresh and I'm in development, you can see that I'm actually making the API call to Strapi. And let's update the home page, removing 1 rocket because 2 was too much. Refreshing, still in development, making API call. This is up to date. So let's generate our project for production now, like I'm deploying to a static hosting. So I'm running Nuxt generate. You can see it is full static. We're building for production, so this takes a while. Okay, and you can see that it generated all these routes and we didn't specify it anywhere. Let's start our production server using the this directory, which has been generated. And when I'm navigating, you can see we don't have any more API call made to Strapi. This means that if I go to my Strapi admin, update to add 3 rockets, because 2 was too much, but 3 is enough, you can see that this is not updated. So we have to generate again. And since we didn't change our code, we are skipping the Webpack build. So automatically it goes to the next step, which is generating the routes, and is super fast. And now we can see that our static hosting has been updated. Next feature we have is this preview plugin. So I'm just checking the preview query parameter, and if it's defined, I'm enabling the preview mode for Nuxt. So what it does, it will unmock the async data and fetch and calling it like before, like in development. So when I'm navigating, you can see the API call made. I'm removing the 3 rockets. Let's refresh the page without the query parameter. This is the actual deployment, going to the preview mode. and you can see the API caller made, and I can preview my change before going live. That's it for the preview mode. Next, I don't know if you have seen, but we also release modules.nuxt.js.org, which is a website listing all the Nuxt modules made by the Nuxt team and the community. We have actually 146 modules, and it is open source, so you can contribute by making a pull request if you created a new module. And this is really nice if you're looking for a Nuxt module, but you don't know where to look for. Let's have some stats for Nuxt and talk about the October 2020. We had 1.2 million downloads on NPM, 1.5 million page view on the documentation. So I think a lot of you guys are reading the documentation, which is good news. And we had a 40,000 page view on the Nuxt module docs, which are actually using the new docs theme by Nuxt Content. And globally, we reached 45,000 followers on Twitter and 31,000 stars on GitHub. So thank you for following us. And I didn't include the newsletter, but feel free to subscribe if you want to have monthly news for Nuxt. We also released View Telemetry 2 months ago. And this website, viewtelemetry.com, is actually a website to discover websites. It's a lot of websites made with Vue.js. It is made by the Nuxt team for the Vue community. The analyzer and the extension are open source, so if you're a Vue plugin author or a Nuxt module author, you can add a pull request to directly add your plugin to the detector. It's a simple JSON file, so we can add your website link to your plugin. It is 100% free, and 2 months later, I'm really happy to see that we have 2,500 users on the Chrome extension, 100,000 page view, and 15 pull requests, which has been merged. And lastly, we have now 17,000 websites analyzed and listed. And we also added the filter, the sorting by popularity, so you can see the top website by Alexa rank sorted. That's it for View Telemetry, and now I need to drink before talking about Nuxt 3. Nuxt 3. Let's talk about the internal change first, because we had this opportunity to rewrite the core to make it easier to upgrade in the future, so we won't have to take that long for the next releases. We implemented Webpack 5. This is done. It is working. We have post CSS 8. We will see how we can backport it for Nuxt 2. We implemented ES build, so this makes actually the development build faster. The whole core has been rewritten in TypeScript. I mean, Vue 3 did it, so why not us? And we saw a big improvement for working internally on Nuxt. We also wrote the Vue bundle renderer for Vue 3 for doing server-side rendering. And we're working on the module utils. So module utils will be able to add runtime code or build code. So simply the idea is to simplify the build module versus module and helping module author to ship a really fast module without worrying too much about the side effects. And as you guess, we also implemented Vue 3, and this is starting differently. Instead of having page index, it will start with the app.view, which is still optional, but this is the entry point of your Nuxt app. So this is an example of a simple page. And you can keep using pages and avoid using app.view, but it's nice to use app.view if you want to do global data fetching. Instead of using Nuxt Server Init, we are trying to make it agnostic, and based on the component level, we will see about this in the data fetching section. It is great for landing pages where you don't need a router actually. So if you don't have pages, we won't include Vue router, making it a really small bundle. Only Vue 3, Vue Meta, and small Nuxt runtime. making it really, really small. I think even smaller than a React app. And of course, routing. And based on View Router 4, thank you, Eduardo, for your amazing work on this. Pages underscore slug become page bracket slug. This is a breaking change, but the good news is that you will be able to have multiple slug, multiple parameter in one page. We will also have a syntax to catch all subpaths directly using these brackets and the 3 dots. We will support page 44.view as well as page underscore error.view. This underscore will allow us to have these special pages. And obviously we'll ignore these pages starting with an underscore. You will be able to add routes at runtime thanks to plugins. So module will be also able to add routes to your application, which is really, really good since now View Router 4 has this sorting inside. So we don't have to do the sorting anymore. And Nuxt.js becomes Nuxt page, one component to route them all. And it's actually as powerful as the 2 other and simpler to use. And now the biggest part from my point of view is data fetching. And I believe Nuxt is really easy to use because you can use async data or fetch, and you don't have to handle this loading state for the client, and you know that the data is there on the component when you hit the page. And it works with server-side rendering, obviously. So how to fetch data with Nuxt 3? After brainstorming with Evanu, Puya, and Daniel, we decided to be based on the composition API because it has so much possibilities. The idea is you can pause the navigation until it's fetched, like the current async data behavior. When you're navigating from one page to another, you will have this loading bar. Or you can disable it, you can defer it, so you will have to handle the placeholder and give instant feedback to the user when navigating from one page to another. It obviously supports server-side rendering and hydration. And I'm really happy about this because it works at the component level, which means everywhere, which also means that if you're an author of a Vue library, or let's say you have a CMS, you can create components that will handle the data fetching and expose them. So people using it, they just have to import the component. Let's say I'm giving the page ID, and it will handle the data fetching for me. Works with server-side rendering too. It will support caching, stale while we validate strategy. So the browser back navigation will be instant. And of course, supporting custom data fetcher. So this is only based on the fetch API, the browser fetch API, but you can use any other data fetching, thinking of GraphQL. Introducing use fetch. You have to import it. We are thinking of a way to give it globally so you don't have to import it. As you know, we have this auto import for components. So I'm also in the way that automatically adding use fetch will be a really nice addition, but at the moment you have to import it. Then you define an async setup. In Nuxt, your pages are directly linked with the suspense component in Vue 3. So you can define async setup for doing your async operation. And this will be called before instantiating your component. Obviously, you don't have access to this, but this doesn't bring less possibility. Then we create our fetch instance. I'm calling it $fetch, and I'm calling useFetch. In the last talk I've given about the Nuxt state, we were using useFetch to make the API call. But after digging into it, we could not use two useFetch in one async setup. And that's one of the limitations, but that makes sense. So the idea, if you use fetch only once in your setup, and then you can call $fetch as many times as you want inside the setup. Then you can make an API call. So $fetch return an object with the data and fetch. That can be useful if you want to call fetch again. Let's say you have a button refresh and you can call it. And then you give it the URL, and it will parse the body for you, and that here I'm returning the mountains, but we'll see in the example later on. The signature is quite simple. The first argument is a request. It can be a string or a function. And the second one is the options. So here I'm watching a parameter, so this will automatically watch props.slug, and as soon as it changes, it will refetch and update the data. That will automatically update your template, so you don't have to watch and manually update the template. You can use a custom fetcher. So here I'm using $Prismic. And you can have this defer option if you don't want to block the client-side navigation, which is the actual fetch hook on Nuxt. And you can also specify that this $fetch call, I don't want it to be server rendered. Let's say I want to server render my article, but I don't want to server render my comments because it's not important for SEO. So here I have my Nuxt 3 application, and it is telling me that I can start adding a page index.view or app.view. Obviously, this is not the final page, it will be sexier, but in the meantime, it does the job. So let's add a hello, title, adding a smiley, we have a module replacement, this is needed of course. Let's have an index page now, with the mountains title. And let's replace this by using our next page component. Here I have my mountains. I'm adding some styles, so it is less ugly. I'm also adding a header with 2 different links, one to the home page and one to the Everest mountain. So I need to create my dynamic page. Here I have it. I'm displaying param.slug that I will get from the view router. For this, I'm using useRoute, which is from the composition API of ViewRouter. And here I have my dynamic page. So let's fetch my list of mountains. For this, I'm using useFetch. The actual app composable will be changed when we release Nuxt 3. And I'm calling my Nuxt.js development API that you guys can use if you want. And let's display a mountain. Don't forget to wait. Okay. Now I have my list. Let's add some styling. Better. I'm coding without my hands now. It's pre-recorded, I'm sorry. So in my slug page, I'm importing useFetch too. I'm going to fetch my mountain. So for this, I'm using my params.slug. And I will return my mountain. Obviously, this won't work. I forgot to return mountain. I know you saw it too. Okay, now I have my mountain. I can navigate. This is great. And I have some styling too. So this is actually mimicking the async data behavior. This is a bit more verbose, but thanks to TypeScript, we have auto-completion. So it's also helping the developer experience. And like I said, it will be more powerful since we can have caching for this and also automatic update. So if we detect this change, we can update mountain that will be automatically updated without you for watching something. So let's add the diff server false option at first. So if I refresh my page, you can see the loading placeholder. But on client-side navigation, this is the same async data. Defer false is the current behavior, so this won't change anything. But if I set it to true, I will still have server-side rendering, but when I do client-side navigation, I will have my loading state. So my mountain will be null, and then it will be displayed. So now what I want to do is I want to create a mountain component that will handle the data fetching for me. So I'm copy-pasting the slug page. So if I have my mountain, otherwise I will display loading. I'm copying the script. And instead of using the router, I'm expecting a prop called slug that will directly fetch the mountain based on the slug. So I don't need use router anymore, use route. and getting the prop from the setup. So I recommend you to look at the Vue 3 documentation to be familiar with the setup. And in my Slug page, I can simply import the component, defining it inside my components. We will have the auto import of components soon, and directly use the mountain component, giving the Slug parameter. And if I go, I have the same behavior as before. And it works with server-side rendering. So let's add another prop called defer that I will also define on the component, and I will give it to $fetch as option. Perfect. So because I defined defer true, now when I'm navigating on client side, you can see the loading state. It's server rendered, but on client side, it will display the loading state. So that's how you can control your component for the data fetching also with props. So this is opening a lot of possibilities for library authors. And even for a company project, you can directly create your components doing data fetching that you can share across your different projects. More stuff coming for Nuxt 3. Auto import of plugins. I really want this feature for a long time. Static directory will become the public directory. These follow more standards. App.html becomes document.html because otherwise we will have app.html and app.view, where actually we're talking about the HTML document. Hooks on the app side. So that's why we are able to auto import the plugins, because we are going to introduce the Nuxt hooks on the client side. So you will be able inside the plugin to do different things based on different life cycles. When the app is created, when the app is mounted, when another plugin has done something, which obviously give a lot of possibilities and control for plugins. We'll support multi-apps. This is great for themings and if you want to override components. We will have this functions directory for server-only execution. So this is simpler than using an API, defining an API with Express, but as much powerful, and if not more actually. And lastly, we will have first-class serverless support. So you will be able to deploy your Nuxt 3 application to Netlify doing server-side rendering and Vercel. And we will also work on the caching layer. So we will have a hybrid mode. And we are trying also to port it to Nuxt 2 because we don't have any big limitation. We'll have some issues, some stuff that you cannot do if you want to have serverless for Nuxt 2, but it will be able to work. When will it be open source? Like I said a few weeks ago, as soon as it becomes usable, we are getting close to something usable. I'm still having issues to fix before. We are opening it to our internal maintainers. They are helping us. And as soon as we have something we can share, we will definitely share with you. Next community, I'm really happy to see that it is keep growing. We have now 12,000 members on Discord. Like I said, we have 45,000 followers on Twitter, and you're really, really active, and it's really, I'm really happy to see your tweet or your reactions when we do a tweet. We had more than 10,000 contributors now on GitHub across all of our organization and repository, 10,000 different contributors, of course, and 3,087 donators on Open Collective. I'm really, really happy. As you know, we have raised money. So we have a Nuxt.js team working on the project like Vue Telemetry, the framework, and plenty of good stuff that will be announced. But we also have the open source maintainers helping us every day that have a job. And we are planning to use this Open Collective money to pay all these volunteers helping us on doing the issue triage. So this will be announced soon. Last thing, we have been working closely to a masterclass called Mastering Nuxt. It is a masterclass to create a real-world application, which is an Airbnb clone. It is in partnership with View School. I'm really happy to see Josh Deltener as teacher, who is also a Nuxt ambassador and actually wrote great article about Nuxt. It will also help supporting the Nuxt development. And you can enjoy an early bird discount with the Nuxt bird. And it's available on masteringnuxt.com. Thank you very much for your time. I'm really happy. I cannot see you, but I hope you enjoy my talk. Thank you.